Hi, all. This is Karen from Karen Test Stuff on Twitter and YouTube. And today I'm here with Melissa Fisher. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Karen.
So, we are going to talk today about software testing advocacy and how you can get involved. I'm really excited to have you here today, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I am really excited to be here. This is something new and exciting. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to exploring it with you.
It is, absolutely. And you put the call out on Twitter just before this. Did anyone have any questions?
Well, I think what we want to find out, Karen, is what is your goal with this software testing advocacy that you're doing here? It's really innovative and exciting. So we want to understand a bit more, what is your goal?
Sure, thank you. I'd be happy to provide some context there. I was sitting at my computer one day thinking about all the things that software testers do and all the things that we have to advocate for, whether it be advocating for bugs to be fixed, advocating for people and users, advocating for risk in a certain area. All of that is advocacy work. And I was thinking, well, who advocates for the advocates? Who spreads this message beyond our borders? And, if you were sitting at a dinner table with your neighbor, would your neighbor know what you do like they know what a pilot does, just kind of innately? And that's what I would like to get to. That's what I would like to see us reach together.
Wow, that's a vision.
Well,
That's really
hence
wonderful.
hence the process, bringing other voices in, because I just have questions. Who advocates for these people? What do they look like? What skills do they have? Where are they? So I'm answering this question by speaking with people like you.
Great. It's really interesting, Karen.
Well, let's start off with the biggest question in the room. What is software testing advocacy? Can you speak on this a little bit? What it kind of looks like in your realm?
Yes, definitely. So I went away to Google and I looked up the word advocacy. As I was thinking, what does that word actually mean? And Google tells me that it's public support or recommendation of a particular cause or policy.
Mm.
So I thought that was like really interesting. Like, it's that public support. We're trying to, get people's, well, it's kind of getting traction with a particular message that you want to send out.
Mhm.
And then I was thinking about how often I see this in the testing community. People are sharing particular approaches.
Mm.
So, for example, there's some wonderful women in testing that I look up to, like Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory. And they talk a lot about agile testing.
And
They've got a great,
holistic testing,
yeah, the
absolutely.
holistic testing, definitely. And I suppose they're trying to send a message, of how to do that, that holistic agile testing. Another amazing woman in testing is Marit, and she talks a lot about ensemble testing, exploratory testing, amongst a lot of other things. Um, but even with that, there's plenty of other people that advocate for particular tools. For example, Beth Marshall, she's another great woman in testing that talks about Postman. So she's sharing that. And also, I've seen in the community people going to a software testing boot camp, and they have been the instructors of the boot camp and teaching other people about software testing. So mentoring, inspiring software testers. So it like
Mm.
happens in different ways. They're sending different messages.
Yes,
Um,
because they have
so
different audiences. So you
yeah,
have to tailor kind of your message to the person. Are you working with another software tester? Are you working with a developer? Are you working with someone who's not in technology? That kind of thing. Tailor it to your
yeah.
audience.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Like in your example, you mentioned, you want to teach your neighbor. So that might be someone that doesn't know anything about software testing. My example would be my dad. I tried to explain software testing to him over and over again, and the message just hasn't quite stuck. So it's kind of like listening, isn't it? And observing. You send out a message and see what comes back, and then you have to tailor it in some way because the message isn't getting through. But yeah, it's thinking about like, what message are you trying to send? What is it about? Is it approach, tools, experience, software testing in general? And then who's your audience? It could be people within your company, right? You mentioned developers. That could be an example. But like, what are your thoughts, Karen, about, do you have any more thoughts on what
Well,
I've said? Yeah.
what's wrapping me in so tightly is the fact that each of these already requires empathy, which is part of our next section that we're going to go into. But I really think that trying to create that shared understanding is the most important part of empathy. It's taking in that information that comes back to you after you've put something out into the world and saying, is it applicable? Are we on the same page? What is their perceived level of understanding of this matter? And can I take this back in and change it a little bit to make it so that they can more easily digest it? So that's what I would do. But speaking of empathy, that is honestly, out of everyone that I've spoken with so far, not a single person has swept empathy under the rug. Everyone says this is like the main thing that you need to have as an advocate. Why?
Yeah, I think it's going back to understanding, like, what message are you trying to send? And do people understand what the message is as well? Um, so it's kind of like listening and really understanding other points of view. Um, for example, I think software testing career is absolutely amazing and brilliant. However, I might have someone across the table from me that don't agree with me, and they think it's the worst career ever. So I think it's trying to get in someone else's shoes and really understand like where they're coming from and why.
Mhm.
Because I think if you can understand that, then you just become better yourself, and you can think of different ways to send the message a little bit differently. But also there's that acceptance, right, that we
Yes.
think differently, we agree to disagree, and that's absolutely fine. We're still, we still get along, but we just agree to disagree.
We do. I just met a new friend a few days ago, and he had mentioned that he was working in development and that he had worked in QA and hated it. Absolutely hated it. It was not for him. But then when I was able to explain kind of why it excites me, the fact that I have this constant stream of questions going through my mind all the time that I'm consistently looking for answers. He goes, "Huh, I never would have thought about it like that." But it
Wow.
interested him enough for us to have that conversation. And maybe I didn't change his mind. Maybe he still hates software testing. But
Yeah.
but that's okay. It takes a special kind of person to have this curiosity.
Yeah,
So I
I
can
love
appreciate
that light bulb moment in your story, just thinking, oh, that's a different thought.
that. Mhm.
That's really nice.
Sure. And you have to kind of stay in that curious mindset this whole way through because you have to want to engage with something, with the unknown, and figure out what do you not know. That's the hardest part. And maybe you grow as you find out those things that you don't know. um how would you suggest to keep an open mind as you're kind of starting in this circle?
I think be prepared to change your mind on something.
Mm.
Um,
That's what it's all
I,
about, isn't it?
I think so. I'm not sure what else to add to that. I think it's just be prepared for like the example we spoke about about software testing. Maybe not everyone loves it and feels that it's for example, we talk a lot about some teams don't feel like they need a software tester,
Hmm.
um, which is absolutely fine. And it's interesting to learn from that. Like, how do they then do software testing, right? Um, so it's just like learning from other people and understanding stuff that's different from your viewpoint. Um, and I think if you keep an open mind, just you'll learn more.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's powerful
Yeah.
as is. And I really enjoyed that you mentioned there the fact that not everyone has a tester on their team. And that's a point where an advocate could really be useful in helping teach the different roles how they can test their realm, their expertise, how they can test within those walls. Because everyone can. Product managers can test, designers can test, developers can test. We can all test. People in public test every day when they're just on their phones. We all have this mini computer in our pocket. We're all using applications. That's testing. That's being part of the process. So I think opening people's eyes to where they fit into the grand scheme of things is really powerful.
Lovely. You put it very well.
Well, my favorite thing that we just have to dig into a little bit is this do, fail, learn, do differently. Can you unbox that a little bit for us?
Yeah, definitely. So at the place I work at a place called Sage, and there's been a community called the Innovation Community. And from that community, I've kind of learned quite a lot about how to experiment and to, have a go and do different things. Um, And I think the prime example is what you're doing here today, Karen, and the stuff that you're doing with the software testing advocacy. You're doing it, you're learning from doing it.
Mhm.
Perhaps, I don't know, the sound or the board, you're constantly improving it, you're learning from it and doing it differently.
Mhm.
So I don't know if do you have any more to add on
I
that? Like, how
do.
do you feel? Is that, yeah, what?
Absolutely. So my process, I do very well with the input of others to say, "Oh, yeah, I thought about that. Why don't we do that?" Or, you should think about it in this way because you're missing context to create another thought on this journey. So I really appreciate the input. That's why I personally like to do a lot of learning in public, where if I'm going through a training course, I'll write a blog post about it. Or if I'm, looking into a certain area that I know someone has expertise in, I'll go Google it and do some research to know what questions to ask, and then come to that person and say, I have a question about XYZ. Can you help me understand the context a little better? And that's scary. It's terrifying because who knows, you're working with other people, and can you truly know another person's mind without asking? So you just have to ask and see where that gets you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if anything I've learned over the last couple of years, like getting involved in sort of the software testing community, is there's so many supportive people and they've got your back. And, we're all here to help each other learn together and
Mm,
succeed. So, do fail, learn, do differently. Everyone's got your back.
yes.
It's just something that, yeah, I've come to realize that you get that group around you that's supportive,
Hmm.
and then it helps you to sort of, yeah, that mentality of just having a go,
Hmm.
learning from it, and then trying something else, or just continuing to do what you have been doing.
Absolutely. That brings us right into our next section about how you actually go about advocating. Just go for it. You can try
Yes.
in any way. All these things that we do already as software testers, a lot of it is advocacy. So you've already got practice. Believe me, you do. So, but getting other people's support in this community is important. And it makes me sad to know that there are people out there that are doing this work that don't know this community exists. We have got to share it to those people because they are missing out on a whole lot of fun.
That's good. I think we both have the same experience there. It is a lot of fun.
It absolutely is. So I really agree with what you put here about sharing what you know, even if it has been shared before. I talked about this with Simon a little bit, where he was saying that everyone has a story. Um, how would you encourage someone who thinks that everything that's already been said has already been said?
Well, I think we all come in with a different perspective. And even though it has sort of been said before, not in the way that you have said it.
Mm,
And I think that's powerful because
mm,
we all have our perspectives, the way we communicate, the way we share ideas. Maybe you'll reach someone that didn't quite understand what someone else has said.
mhm,
And that's okay just to learn from different people and how it fits, with you. Because we all learn differently, don't we?
mhm. There was a really
Uh,
interesting session that Simon did on Ministry of Testing for note taking, where he
uh-huh.
had all of us from different countries read the same article and then take notes in silence. And then we came back together and compared our notes. And it is so interesting to see how something that sticks out to you, someone else totally blew by, and vice versa. How someone
Wow.
else had this context that they gained and this insight from their personal experience that they brought to the table that then allows them to process it in this whole other way that just blows my mind every time.
Wow, that's amazing. Um, just one thing I want to touch on, how do you go about advocating,
Mhm.
is back to the beginning bit of understanding what your message is and your
Yes.
audience. So I think that's really important. Um, you don't always have to know those answers though. I
No.
think just thinking back from what I've thought is that I just simply had a go, like writing a blog and my thoughts on it. And I didn't really put a lot of thought into it. It was just like have a go and
Mhm.
see where it goes sometimes. So I think there's two different ways you could try it, have a go or just think about the message, what
Mhm.
you're advocating for. Don't know, would you
Absolutely.
agree with that, Karen, or anything else to add?
I would absolutely because I think that that plays into how we encourage other people to get involved because that's what we're doing right now is encouraging other people to share their story. And I think that there's a lot out there to be afraid of, but there's also so many people out there that want to celebrate you. They want to celebrate the work that you're doing and lift you up, and they want to be involved with your conversation. Um, the work that I'm doing right now is a perfect example of this, where people have been reaching out to me and saying, I really enjoy what you're saying about this. I think I have something to add. And that's all it takes. What's the worst that could happen? The person in my position could say no, and then you move on to the next opportunity. So I would encourage you not to listen to that little voice that says you can't.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have your back. And sometimes it's not always obvious
Mhm,
until you give something a go. And then you realize, wow, people are cheering me on in the background.
mhm,
And if I hadn't have done this, I wouldn't have realized all those people that are, supporting me and pushing me forward.
mhm,
So, yeah, I think your example is perfect in the work that you've been doing.
mm. And as we kind of wrap up here, I'd really like to ask you about this quote that I pulled out, this challenge brings change. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I I sort of fundamentally believe that sometimes, not always, like getting out of our comfort zone is a good thing.
Yes.
And it challenges you to start to think in a different way. And when you
Mm,
start to think in a different way, it brings opportunities for change. So
it
I
does.
absolutely love that quote. What a brilliant quote.
I do too. I think that's a perfect place for us to leave the viewers. But I still have questions. And if anyone else has questions, please let us know in the comments below. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. I'm going to put up our handles on the screen here so that you can find us on Twitter. We're also on LinkedIn, as well as multiple other places on the internet. You can find us on the Ministry of Testing Club, all over the place. So please connect with us and continue the conversation. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Melissa. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Karen.
I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.